Yo, how's it going, everyone? In this video, we're gonna learn how I took my 20% really bad closing rate all the way to a 70, which is pretty crazy. And I'm gonna show you the two things that I constantly did over and over again to go from that, pretty much below average closing rate to the very high closing rate. So again, the two things that I did is something that I just want to say before. It's not something you do once and it's done. This is something that it's kind of like it's like working out. You got to go to the gym every day. I think, I know sales kind of like the working out part of your business. You got to do it. You got to flex a muscle every day. And if you can get a higher closing rate. Before I show you what are the two things that I did, I want to kind of show you my stats for the year 2022. I want to just hear, like, this is what my closing rate was in January. I'm going to, let me see if I could just change the colors for you to see even better. Boom. It was literally abysmal, and 19%. So that was my pretty much when I started going very hard on ads. I was already started to spend at least 10K a month on ads. So that was my first month. It was I still had a very low closing rate. I mean, cost per acquisition. It was only $600, and I was closing people at $5,000 or $4,000, whatever it was. So it kind of worked out, but very low closing rate. Now, if we go to February, I got better. In February, it actually increased. I almost doubled it, which is amazing. Doubling your closing rate, it's amazing. I think I took a little bit less calls than before, but still a very solid closing rate. Let's go into March. This is when I started going pretty much like, it's gonna be over 9,000 pretty soon. So, and one of the reasons for that is literally the two things I'm gonna show you what I did. And it's, again, I had to do this thing over and over again so I could keep increasing my closing rate. Not all months are very high. I went back down. So March I did 62, but then on February it jumped to 46. I did take more calls here on March. I only took 16 calls. So that might be the reason for such a high closing rate. Then on April, I almost double the calls, but I did 46% closing rate, which is still not bad at all. Out of 10 people closing 4 average, you're pretty much solid. Now we go to May. May I took a different for some reason, so I guess I'm going down here. I gotta go back into sales training. So I did a 26%, which was the lowest in a couple months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty much 5 or 6 months is the lowest in 5 or 6 months. And then we go back into June, which we go back into a 70, close to a 70% closing rate, which is fucking badass. It's fucking awesome. And you can see, like, this month I'm like, okay, I gotta go back to whatever I was doing back in January, February, and March because it was working there. So I went back into it, and then numbers shows the next month, boom. July, look at July, I'm in 75% closing rate, which is amazing. That pretty much, well, again, the cost per book cost did go down. It's only 12 people, but hey, I mean, it's not too bad. I talked to 25 and I closed 68%, which is not bad. From 12 to 75% is still not bad too. And at my highest point, when I was closing about 30 to 40 people a month, I still had like a 50 to 60% closing rate. On 2023, my average, if you go to my 2023 data, where is it? I had to look for it somewhere, but it's 23. It's 47% closing rate. Then we go to 51. So you can see how my closing rate went all the way as high to 78. And I think I had a month I closed at 80%. And I think that month I only took like 20 something calls too. So yeah. But let me show you the two things that I did constantly to get a high closing rate, right? So I kind of have these two things right here. So we're gonna go through it real quick. This is what really helped me. So one of the first things that I would say is learn from someone who's done it before. That'll probably be the first advice I'll give anybody, is to just learn from somebody who's already done it, because that skips a lot of the guessing work. A lot of the times in sales, if you're by yourself in the weeds, it could be very hard to know what you're doing wrong because it's your first time doing it. So one of the first things that I did that is key to all of this is I started learning from somebody who's already done it at a very high level. Like the people who I was learning from, they've already been doing this for 20, 30 years. Some people already had like 5,000 Zoom calls under their belt, and I'm taking notes from them because that is just the easiest way to learn. Like, I'm not trying to figure out, reinvent the wheel. Like, there's a bunch of companies out there that are doing millions of dollars a month and they figure it out. So like instead of me taking a year, 2 years to figure that stuff out, I'm just gonna learn from the goats. I'm gonna learn from the greats, and trying to skip time. I think that buying information is one of the time machines of life. Is we live in the era of information. This like if you have a problem and if you have money, you can solve that problem pretty quick. You can find the person who's been doing that or solve that problem. There's always somebody ahead of you in life, which is awesome. And if you can get in contact with this person, which now we could in the era of social media, it's so easy to buy access to information and jump to massive levels. That's the only reason I go from a 20% closing rate to a 75% closing rate. That's the only reason. Why does that happen like in 30 days? Why is it such a dramatic difference in just 30 days? Well, that is the reason. I am learning from people who are operating such a high level frequency than me. They're so the experience it's triple, quadruple, 10x than me. Like I would say even further than that in some cases. So that's the reason I'm able to learn so quick. That's literally one of the keys of this is having a good person to learn from, a good mentor, a good coach. It doesn't have to, you don't have to necessarily pay these people. Like I've learned from, well, honestly, a lot of the good content that I've gotten, I pay for it. But like Alex Ramosi is one of them. Like he showed me the closer framework. I learned that from YouTube and I use it to this day. So you could get a lot of free content out there without even paying somebody. So let's go back into like number one rule. If you want to get better at sales, learn from somebody who's already done it. I'm gonna go over quick, like just two quick books that really helped me when I was doing this. One is The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. The reason why this one helped me a lot is because it's the straight line system. I put here what are the two key points I took. Well, one from each, and for me it was the straight line system. So a lot of the times that we're talking to our prospect, we tend to get lost in the woods. So pretty much we start because we're asking questions about them, their life, whatever it may be, and just somehow we get lost in the woods. We get lost into talking about God knows what that has nothing to do with the sale. We're not getting no information to help us sales. We're just talking just because we think it's helping us do the sale, and that doesn't really help. So I learned that from Jordan Belfort. He's like, hey, learn the straight line system. Like you have to have control of the conversation. You got to know where the conversation is heading. You got to have the framework, right? Which leads to the next book that really, really helped me. And I read this book or heard it mainly, I would say, like over 50 times, I would say. I'm not even kidding. I put it on 1.5 speed. The book is about 40 something minutes. You can go through it, or like an hour or something. You can go through it very, very quick. And the key main thing I took away from this book is framing is everything. Asking the right question makes a sale. So you have to ask, like, sales is not about pitching, it's about asking and understanding. Once you understand the prospect by asking the right questions, you know if you can help this person or not. Once you know you can help this person or not, and you do have the solution, then it just makes sense for them to join you because they're trying to solve a problem. And that's where what sales is. It's like, because I always had a negative thing for sales, and that's because I thought sales was always convincing people to buy something that I'm just forcing you to buy something. But when I understood that sales is persuading, is giving you enough information for you to understand that you have more problems than the one you thought, and I have the solutions for it. So once I understood that sales is just a conversation part of the business, an understanding part. When I changed my framing of how to understand sales, and I did this like I'm telling you guys, like in 30 days, as you can see from January, I could go back to it from January 20%, February 30%, March 62, 46. I went back down, but I'm still going, 68, 75. How am I able to do this? By literally like changing my framework, learning, repeating. And that's how I got there. It's almost like I was training to be a better salesperson. How I read, I always buy two books in two forms, in audio and book format. So buy the Audible, have a subscription. They give you one free book every month, and then I just buy every book I need. I do it through Amazon. You can do literally with 2 clicks. You can buy the physical, and you can buy the audio right there, boom, boom, and then you can start right away. You can start downloading the book in audio. The next day, if you have Amazon Prime, which you should, the book is gonna get there the next day. Get some this little thing, book markers. All my books are marked. If I could give you, let me just give you one. Just one random book story. Why I was just talking about this in my program. Look how they all marked. They all have this little sticker thing. Let me change the camera. Boom, you see them. They're all there. So use that. Mark your books. As soon as you mark something, pause the audio. Once you pause the audio, mark that book and highlight that sentence that or whatever stopped you for whatever reason. go into your journal and don't write the exact same thing as the book. Write your way of writing what you just learned. Okay, so if you like, don't ever, if you learn something for somebody, don't ever write the exact thing that person say. Write it in your own way of saying it, because I'm telling you, that's how you're going to retain information. That's how you're going to remember all this stuff. If you just write everything like copy and paste, that is not yours. It doesn't come within, so you're not going to remember. If you write it on your own way and how you understood it, different from what the person told you, this is the perfect chance for you to, this is how I retain a lot of the information. So again, buy the audio, buy the physical, buy this little note things where you can mark the page or whatever, so they can all be sticking out, kind of like how I showed you with mines. And then write whatever the paragraph you read, the sentence whatever it is, write it down, mark it in your own way. So now let's go to courses that helped me. So it's honestly one really good course that really helped me through the sales cycle, and that's from Jeremy Miner. If you know who Jeremy Miner is, he's a monster in the industry. We actually had a call not too long ago that I was breaking down his funnel. This guy is doing like $1 million a month. He just does pure sales. And one of the main things he teaches is NEPQ, which is neuro emotional persuasion questions, which that's like his framework. How he's done millions and millions in sales, like 30 million, whatever it may be. And actually probably way above that. But his strategy is pretty much like the Dan Henry, what I was saying about asking the right question makes a sale. If you guys don't know who Jeremy Miner is, highly recommend you start doing research about him. Buy all his programs. Again, I don't get any kickback from all these people. I'm just telling you, this is how I learned this. So go buy his stuff. They have like a $50 thing, then they have like a $300 thing, then they have like an $8,000 thing. So I recommend all of those, and then they have like a even higher ticket, but from the $50 one to the $300 one, all the way to the $8,000 one, even the $300 package that he just talks about NPQ and all the objections, that one is great. Like you can just stop there, make up money, and then get his higher ticket, which is pretty much what we did. You guys need to learn from this man. He's a genius. All his salesmen are really good. So pretty much asking the right questions to make the sale. So making emotional, persuading questions. So I'm not going to get too much into it. It's better him to explain you what his framework is than me. But highly recommend his courses. Highly recommend his program. Go right now if you're struggling with sales and spend the $300 or the $50 just to get his lower ticket product. Watch, learn everything, and then upgrade as you get better, because I promise you will get better. Now, another framework that dramatically changed my closing rate, that literally I started implementing that month that I learned it, was the closer framework. Now, if you guys don't know the closing framework, then that's probably where you guys are not making a lot of sales. This framework works in any system. So the closer framework is, for us, is for credit and funding company. Process C clarifies for why they're there. L stands for label them with a problem. O is overview what they have already tried and pretty much overview the conversation. S is results, show them the how, not how to pretty much show him the results, not the how. E is the explain away the concerns with the objections, and R is pretty much back to results and reinforcements, pretty much just pitching. So that's kind of like the framework and kind of how like the call should go, how the call is structured by these chunks of like boom of sections. So first the first 5 to 15 minutes clarify over there, or 10 minutes, then the next 10 minutes label them with a problem, then the next 10 minutes overview we tried, and all of this together becomes like like a 30 to 45 minute or even hour call. And this is kind of the framework that you should be using for you to close your clients. I highly recommend this. Again, if you guys don't know about the closer framework from Alex Ramosi, just go to YouTube, put the closer framework from Alex Ramosi. He has like 5 videos on this. Way better than him explaining this than I am. He has, like I said, if I have 1,000 Zoom calls under my belt, he probably has 10,000. These guys are way ahead of me. So learn from the GOATs, learn from the best. And you could learn also from people who's direct in the industry, that's why I have a lot of people that join my program, which the last one and least is learn from someone who's directly in that industry. And for me, that's kind of like Access to Million Academy is about. I only help people who are in the credit and funding company. I'm only niched down to that industry, and that's what kind of makes me special. So for us, I have over 22 hours of information on how to close deals. This one, I do charge a very low ticket of $47 a week for you can get access to this information. You can click the link below and join whenever you want. Again, you don't have to get my stuff. There's look how that's why I put myself last. I went through all of this before I even had I for me to get here to have 22 hours of information about sales. I got it from, Alex, Jerry Minor, and the books I read. I read a bunch of books on sales. This is just the two that impacted me the most. What I would do is I'll go to Amazon. I'll go to Amazon. I put sales book. Any book that has over 100 star review, I buy them all. But this is the two books that I read multiple times. The Way of the Wolf, I think I read it 4 or 6 times. Not the whole book, just certain chapters. High Ticket Selling, I think I've literally listened to it like over 40 to 50 times. The whole goddamn book. You get me? So that's why I put these two books. But the reason I got good at sales, the reason why I got to a 70% closing rate is because literally from all this, doing this all like again and again and again and again and again and again and again. This is the number one thing that got me to be a great closer, because I don't even consider myself a salesperson. Not at all. Like I see myself more of a marketer, but I had to sell for my company, especially when I started the business. Nobody but else you doing sales. So that's exactly what I did. So again, you can learn all this way. You don't have to learn you don't have to use my program if you don't want to. But if you want to learn from someone directly in the industry, if you're already in the credit and funding space, and I know Alex is from the gym, Jerry Miners overall, so it's like, hey, it doesn't matter. But if you want to learn somebody directly from the industry, this is where I've always gotten the most results. Every time I talk to somebody in the industry who's ahead of me a few levels, it's where I learned the most because they already experience all the objection. They already experienced pretty much everything that I'm going to experience. They already went through it. And especially if somebody's doing like how we've been doing 300K months for a while now. It's about to be 2 years. No, it's about to be 8 months that we're doing 300K months, but we've been doing over 6-figure months for 2 years now. So like I already seen a bunch of scenarios. I already seen a bunch of bullshit. I already taken a bunch of sales calls. So learning for somebody directly could actually be the quickest way for you to learn. But again, I have to charge you for information because I used to charge massive amount of money for this. And now I'm just giving you for $47 a week. But you get at least 22 hours of that, and I'm constantly updated. So every time I do a lesson, a new masterclass, I always update it here. So it's always being updated. This is not dry information. This is updated information. So that's the number one thing I did to increase my sales rate. Now, the second thing I did is a lot more simple, but simple doesn't mean this easy, all right? But this was very, very simple. That's why I kept it short. There's a lot of stuff that going on here because you got to learn all these things, all these frameworks, all these books. But once you start taking your sales call, then you go into number 2, which is review. Review your own sales call. You need to be watching your worst calls and listen closely. Now that you're not on the call, listen for red flags that you missed. This happens all the time since you're in the almost like a lot of brand new chess players tend to make mistakes because they're too in the field, and then people who are observing, they see the mistakes clearly because they're zoomed out. You get me? So that happens a lot when you're doing sales for the first time. You're so zoomed in into your sales cycle, into the sale, that you forget, you don't listen well, or you miss a bunch of red flags that now that you got your have perspective and you're almost like in a different view, you can kind of catch a bunch of things, not only red flags from the clients that what the client said, but things that you made and mistakes that you clearly say, I shouldn't have said that. Like, that was a mistake. Oh, the way I said this incorrectly. I should have asked this way. Oh, I was too easy here. Oh, I was too harsh here. You get things. Especially, it needs to be you need to be. So when I first started doing this, I hated to watch my worst sales call because it's so awkward and cringy, and you're like, oh God, I know this is gonna be bad. But those are the ones you learn the most. Honestly, that's why I watch more of my worst calls than my best calls. Like best calls, I learned to be like, okay, what am I doing here? Like I'll get to that part now, but review your worst calls because you're gonna learn a lot. Now, same goes with every closed call. Always take notes on the things that you did on this call that you did not do on the ones you didn't close, on ones that you didn't close. So a lot of the times, which it happened to me, when you start closing people left and right, boom, boom, 50% closing rate, 60, 70, whatever the F may be, you start getting very cocky and you start just playing with it. And I think this is the mistake that a lot of experience, it happened to me, it happened to one of my salesmen too, that we get so good that for like a whole quarter, and the next quarter we start trying different things and we kind of move away from what was already working. And that happened to me once, which that's why I always stick to what I already know. And I watch my close calls. I'm like, okay, how can I replicate this success? Because success is duplicatable, and at least like success leaves trace of of how to get there. You know, success leaves trace of success, pretty much. So if you watch your calls consistently, you're gonna start noting patterns like the ones you close. You'll be like, hey, I'm always doing this, and every time I close somebody, write that down. You get me? Hey, around this point, around this time frame, I noticed around the 25-minute mark, I'm already asking these questions. I already know this much. In all the 10 calls that I closed this month, this is how they usually go. So when you start sensing on a different call, on a new call, I'm sorry, that it's not going like this, you should already be like, oh, something is happening now. Something is not going how it usually goes. Let me see how I could start changing my questions around, or maybe this person is not going to close, this person is not opening up. So you guys start trying something to get back into the same mood or the same mode or the same framework that you had in on the calls that you originally closed. All right. So very, very important. I know a bunch of people who are like at 20 or 30% closing rate and they're not reviewing their own calls. You guys got to watch your reviewing calls. You got to be on top of it, because who's going to do it for you? You get me? And even when you do hire a sales team, you either hire a sales manager to be on top of these calls, or you got to do it yourself. But somebody has to be reviewing these calls, because I'm telling you, sales people get comfortable. They do good for a good quarter, another quarter. It's very rare to find a salesman that they're just fucking on top of everything. They just like, hey, let me go. Like, there are people out there, of course they are. I know some myself. It's very hard. So sometimes you got to be on top of them. Even when they make a sale and they didn't pitch them, I mean, I didn't close them. Hey, why didn't you close this person? What we do is bring me the worst call of the week and bring me best call of the week. And sometimes they have 3 over the worst call. They said, yo, these 3 are really, really bad. You get me? And let's go through those. And then I like them telling me what's wrong with the call before I say anything. So this is more for sales management. So let's say if I'm review one of my salesperson's call, I'm like, hey, so what went wrong with the call? Like, because they probably watched it before me, and they're like, okay, this is all the things that I think is wrong with the call. And then I'm reviewing that doc, and if I have like if I agree with them, like I pretty much just emphasize, I check mark, yeah, that's you're right about this, check mark on the things that he already emphasized. And the things that I'm adding, I'll put my, hey, also this, and I'm adding new thing as we watch in the calls, so then we can go over exactly what's going on. So you could do the same thing with yourself. So very, very important. This is something that some people don't do. They never review the calls, and that's easily the 2 things that I did. I know this is very simple, but very difficult to do, because it's like I said, it's like working out. You got to be consistent. You think if you do it once or 1 week, your closing rate might go up, but then you got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. It's like I said, it's the muscle part of your business. You always need to work this muscle out. So again, this is the only 2 things I did to get to such high closing rate. It's literally those 2 things. I learned from someone who's done it, and then I started reviewing my own work. Learn from somebody who's done it. Literally, it just these 2 things go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. That's all I did, back and forth. I review my calls, and then I learn from the grades, and then I review my calls. Learn from the grades, review my calls, because I didn't have the confidence to jump on the call for the first time and without even learning anything. So the first thing I did is it's learn. I had to learn from people who were already ahead of me. And like I said before, we're in the area of information. Don't try to figure everything out, because there's a bunch of shit figured out for you. So like stop breaking your head figuring something out when somebody already figured it out. So what you should do is literally try to find somebody who's already that you already can make hold on, let me do this real quick. I wanted to show the diagram, but pretty much this, guys. Learn from someone who's done it. Review your calls. Learn from somebody who's done it, and this cycle is what got me to make in 1 year of setting high ticket closing. I think we ended in the year at 2 point something. It was 2.1. On one company it was like 1.6, and then another company was around $800 extra. And I was primarily doing the sales, and these are the 2 things that I did. I'll learn from the greats, and then I review my work. Learn from the grades, review my work. Learn from the grade, and then just that cycle goes back and forth. All right. So I hope you guys a lot of value from this video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Again, if you want to implement this whole funnels for you, if you don't have a cost per, if you don't know your cost per acquisition, if you don't have a funnel, if you're not driving traffic to your business, if you're stuck at 10, 20, 30K months because you still rely on referrals and word of mouth, you can book a one-on-one call with us. We take your company from $10,000 a month all the way to $100,000 a month. Links are below. Again, if you don't have the money to join my program already, because we are a bit expensive, you can join my weekly community, which is just $47 a week, where you get access to pretty much all of this, which has over 70 hours of information on how to scale, grow, and automate your funding company and creative company. All right, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one.